On today's show, in what has already been a sensationally magical season, the Padres delivered more sensationally magical moments, clinching their playoff berth on a game-ending triple play. It's practically a joke, but the best kind of joke, and we got to talk about it. This team's ridiculous, man. Let's keep having fun.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Wednesday, September 25th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, Javiipeno, or at @LO_Padres. Be sure to check out my baseball-related work over at justbaseball.com, where I'm working on the most electric storylines of all general baseball, and I've also got my other podcast over there, Baseball versus the World, for general baseball fun goodiness. Gonna be doing a fictional ball player draft soon. Check that out. And in terms of this show, man, I mean, we're talking about last night, obviously. That's what we do. We do game recaps. But I am doing this, and I will be posting this at what will probably be at like 3:30 a.m. or whatnot, because I decided, you know what? I'll sleep when I'm dead. Sleep is overrated. It's not. It's definitely not. Everybody tries to get as much sleep as you want. It's really, really important. But, I mean, it's just... I tweeted out how it really feels like the way that last year went, and it's not always a given that you have to be bad in baseball one year to make the playoffs the next year. I mean, just ask the Dodgers that, right? Like there are teams that are consistently in it every year. There are teams that are like fine, right? Like there are some teams that are like the Twins, right? The Twins, the Mariners, like these okay teams that make it every now and then. They don't necessarily go too far. Guardians have been like that a couple times. Just like decent teams that are pretty good every year. But the Padres were like about as disastrous as one could hope. If you're a naysayer, right? As much as you could hope last year, with them being one of the three least clutch-worthy teams since I was born, 1996, with them having to trade Juan Soto because they spent so irresponsibly for the rest of the roster and they needed to reset the luxury tax, all that sort of stuff. The fact that they were just as bad as they were last season, as disappointing as they were last season, despite all the options they made, and to come into this year and have so many moments, so many comeback wins, and then to not only just clinch the playoffs, but to clinch the playoffs in what, if you had, I can't even speak. I'm running out of ways to talk. This team, it is so appropriate that they clinch their playoff berth on a dramatic play. And not just, frankly, something that's even more rare than just a game-winning hit. It is a triple damn play. It's just first triple play, but you just don't get them very often. And then your first impression when you see it happening, you're like, this isn't happening, is it? And it does. Hits to Manny, then to Solano, then to Cronenworth. I just can't really... there's no more words. And I know that words are kind of my thing. I literally mentioned in the intro that I write for a website, justbaseball.com. Go check it out. But I have nothing anymore. I cannot wait for about a week from now, before the playoffs start, officially, we clinched the berth, before the playoffs start, to recount all the best moments of this season, because there has been way, way too many. And it really does feel like you had to sacrifice 2023 to get this. That's how good the season has been. You know what I mean? And it's been so good. It's been so good that even depending on how things shake out in the playoffs, I think it's been so lovely to watch this team just from almost like a product standpoint even, right? Forget being a fan. It's just an amazing team to watch play baseball. You've got good pitching. You've got good relief pitching. You've got a super deep lineup. You've got guys coming off the bench. You've got young guys, old guys, stars, and newcomers all over the place. And it almost makes it like if someone told me, ooh, a genie came out of a lamp and was like, I will grant you a legendary season, but you have to have one of the most choke job seasons ever right now. Do you take the offer? And obviously I probably say no, because, you plan for the future, you know what's going to happen there. But, it's in retrospective, maybe you say yes, that's how magical this season has been. I cannot believe that happened. Unbelievable stuff. But before we get into it, let's go through the regular order of operations, the regular chain of events that occurred last night, because it also felt like a damn playoff game. It practically is, with the Padres still hoping, even if it is a very small chance, of potentially winning the National League West. That is still something that can happen right now. And playing against the Dodgers, that's the other thing. For it to happen last night, not just to clinch the playoff berth, but also against your division rival who you're still trying to catch in these final moments, insane stuff, right? Like, absolutely insane stuff. But first, let's start with Michael King really quick, because Michael King has, I don't know if he's been underrated. I think he has been a little bit. And I think part of that, there's a bunch of reasons for that. He's not the same, he doesn't have the name brand, even though a guy like King as the last name is like, come on, there's plenty of like opportunities with that. But I think that part of it is also that, in fairness, I'm not trying to take a shot or anything like that, Juan Soto has been amazing for the Yankees, and usually it's a little bit more sexy of a thing to be like, wow, Soto, if it happened, of course, and of course would not happen, but if Soto was like really disappointing, if he's only like a 3.5 win player and everyone's like, wow, and the Padres got in return Michael King, who's going to finish, get a lot of down ballot votes for Cy Young, and he should. He's got now a 2.95 ERA on the season, 1.9 whip. In this game, he goes 5 innings, gives up 1 run unearned on 3 hits, 0 earned runs, 2 walks, 3 Ks. It wasn't his most dynamite start in the world, but considering, that it is the Dodgers, it's kind of come to be expected, and especially since his last few starts had been, up there more in strikeouts. So I guess he was due for a down start by his standards. But all in all, I mean, he still looked really, really solid. And that's kind of what he's been all year. I know I've been saying this ad nauseum for the past few episodes, but basically he just had one bad month in which he was giving up all these home runs. And frankly, I was way more concerned because I was a little bit, there's just something about him in the way he was pitching. His pitch mix was off. I didn't like that his velocity was down, particularly on his fastball. But didn't matter. He figured things out. And he was great. He had a couple changeups that looked great, especially last night. I think that the King story is just something, it's just remarkable. Like, again, guys, there's so much stuff to talk about with this team that went well this year, right? Like, it's the opposite of how you people out there are feeling about your fantasy football teams probably right now, right? Where everything seems to go wrong, everything went right for the Padres this year. And watching King in what felt like ostensibly a playoff game, it had that atmosphere to it. And the one run that he did give up, it was thanks to his Xander Bogaerts throwing error, first of all. I forgot what inning it was, but it was early on, so it wasn't even charged to him. That's what's so crazy. So again, Michael King is probably going to get like some Cy Young votes, and that's not even like the most cool thing that happened this year. Like, from a player perspective, obviously moments is another thing, but in terms of breakout players, like the Merrill and Profar things have been like even better. Like, that's crazy. If you told me that Michael King coming in would be this good and it wouldn't even be the biggest breakout performance by any player on this team this year, I'd be like, what? Like, what's going on here? Do we form the Justice League? Like, I don't understand what's going on here. But that is what happened. And also in this game, the Padres bullpen, as always, they need a lot of credit, giving up no runs until Robert Suarez in the 9th. And we got to talk about Robert Suarez because he is probably literally the only bad thing that has happened in the second half, and especially since the trade deadline. The only thing, and I'm not exaggerating. We'll talk about that more and keep celebrating all that is good about the Padres in just 1 second, guys. But first, I need to take a second to talk to you about one of our sponsors for today's show, too, in fact. And the first one is Booking.com. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Booking.com, the right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals, even the Dodgers, you want to go to LA, check that out. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. Hotels, bed and breakfast, they've got you covered with everything. If you want to chase your stadium's cuisine or anything like that. I know that that's not necessarily what you think of when you're going to be traveling and whatnot, but you can do that. I recommend it. Go check it out with Booking.com. And they've just got all sorts of great, offers. They'll filter things for you to make your trip fantastic and lovely. So go check it out, guys. Booking.com app today. Next sponsor, of course, is the always so lovely, fantastical, and joyful. That is the good folks who have been sponsoring this podcast for a long time over at FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I almost said big return on NFL. That would be weird. But so when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, You can check out the latest stats, whatever you want to do, latest stats, play-by-play, and so much more on the page where you place your bets. And get this, it's always, on this podcast, we give you deals. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's right, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed if you just throw down $5. That's awesome. FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Go check it out. And just like that, everybody, we are back thriving and vibing into the second segment of the show. Oh, man. Locked On Padres, your team every day, everybody. Especially as we get into these wind down moments, because moments like this happen. That's why I got to make sure that I'm giving you guys the content every day. Wow. Padres bullpen. Adrian Morejon, he comes in, gets things done. And by the way, like, there were some moments in this game. Like, the Dodgers did fight a little bit in this game. You know what I mean? They did get a decent amount of hits, especially when it seemed like they were starting to build something. Teoscar Hernandez, he rips a double at one point in this game. That was big for them. And he draws a walk. Shohei Ohtani rips a double and draws a walk as well. And is actually robbed in this game by Jurickson Profar. Again, it's just this team. It's just got a crazy edge to it. Jurickson Profar has been one of the less than stellar is actually putting it lightly. One of the worst kind of defenders out in the outfield this year. He was really dreadful last year. He's only been a little bit better this year. He just doesn't have a lot of range and whatnot. And we could get to that another time. Frankly, the vibes are too immaculate for me to care right now. Who cares? Jurickson Profar has kind of been the heart of this team in certain ways this year. But Mookie Betts goes over 4, nothing from him. But Will Smith gets 2 hits. Kike Hernandez comes in as a pinch hitter. He gets a bunch of hits. That guy has some, random dude who comes off the bench and might show up in the playoffs type of energy. And he did. And, that echoes what I've been saying, that it feels like this had playoff energy to it. I also did see some people making fun of the Dodgers fan base that was, leaving in the 5th inning. I don't want to get too much into that. The Dodgers fan base, they have a big fan attendance, on average, every year. But you know what? Screw it. This is a celebration night. Yeah, you cowards. Why are you running away? Also, in this game, though, I will say that, again, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but the Padres bullpen, Morejon, Jeremiah Estrada, I don't know exactly why, but he was only brought in for 1 pitch. That was weird. I didn't know exactly what was going on there. Estrada, as I've said before, is still one of the players that I worry about a little bit come postseason time. It's him, Yuki Matsui, and Adrian Morejon. Although now I have to throw Robert Suarez in. We'll get to him in a second. Estrada's just young, though, and I still think that he's showcased stuff that I do believe might suggest that in the long-term future, especially with the control they have over him now, he could be that, number 2 or closer reliever on this team. I think that they believe in him that much, and he's improved so much, and especially with his wild kind of up and down career in a lot of ways. So that was great. Tanner Scott, he gives up 1 hit, but it's all good. Jason Adam, he gives up a hit, but it's all good. Robert Suarez, the only downer, but you know what? Got to recap the game. Got to talk about it a little bit, at least. It's worth talking about that Robert Suarez comes into this game. He is the closer, but he gives up a single to Will Smith and then to Tommy Edman and then to Kike Hernandez. So 3 straight singles. And I don't want to panic and start saying, wow, I sometimes don't like it when in baseball, when someone goes through a bad stretch, that we start talking about how bad they are and wow, he's atrocious. It's well, the guy's been good for literally the whole year. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to hate too much, I guess is the way to put it, right? So I don't want to hate too much on him, but that being said, it has been pretty rough lately for Robert Suarez, right? We've talked about this before. We talked about this on the previous episode. And by the way, in fairness, I will say that it's not like he gave up super hard contact to the Kike Hernandez hit, but even still, this is just, expected batting average on all the plays. It's not like it was, super high or anything like that, or super low, I should say, or anything like that. Sorry, guys, I'm a little bit tired. But I don't know fully what's happening, but one of the things we talked about on yesterday's show was that his ERA has gone up by the month, and he doesn't get as many strikeouts as I would like. He's still going to be a reliever that's going to be important for this postseason, but I wouldn't be too surprised if maybe the Padres decide to go in a different direction at the closer role, I wouldn't be surprised, but I will say that Mike Shildt does have a little bit of an old-fashioned vibe to him. And old-fashioned managers, in my experience, tend to just stick with guys. They really value closer experience. That's something that we can debate for another podcast, whether or not that's true or not. I think that it's fair to give managers that ability. I mean, they're closer to the game. They know these guys better than us and folks like me doing podcasts with Pikachu, you know what I mean, sitting here on my screen. But I will say that there's only been like one time in my life where I thought that was stupid. Go look up Fernando Rodney. 1 year with the Mariners, he had like a 4.9 ERA, but he got like 40 saves or something crazy where it was like this guy was not very good, but because he had experience, they kept putting him in. But you know, it obviously becomes a moot point here, but it is worth talking about. And I will say, talked about this yesterday with Jeff Snyder of Locked On Dodgers, that the good news is that they have some guys in this bullpen that I could see them mix and match with. So guys like Jason Adam and Brian Hoeing, where especially with the former, Adam has been a guy with the Rays before the Padres traded for him, where sometimes he does close games. He would get like 8 or 9 saves a year, and then it would be a committee. So if there's anyone who would be down and maybe fit into that role and be like, all right, if I need to close out game 2, totally cool with it. If I go right back and it's Suarez again, it's not going to throw me off or anything. I'm used to lurking in that type of leverage. So that's the good news. But I will say, got to talk about it, and hopefully, Suarez figures it out. Should Mike Shildt have started getting people up a little bit faster? Maybe. Wandy Peralta was warming up, which didn't make me thrilled. So they did get lucked out there, and they lucked out in a lot of ways, right? I mean, the fact that you were able to pull this off, right? The fact that it is the first one by the Padres since 2010 triple play. And I'm actually wondering, I don't know if this has ever happened, that the team has performed a triple play, to end the game and then clinch a playoff berth. Like, has that ever happened? Maybe by the time this episode posts, there may be someone, Sarah Langs, right, will post like, actually this happened in 1845. I don't know, but I've never seen that before. There was a triple play, for those curious, to end the game not too long ago. It was by the Yankees, I'm going to say 3 or 4 years ago. So that has happened before. But to win a game is incredible, and specifically to win a game to clinch the playoff berth, I should say. So unbelievable stuff. Absolutely love to see it. No words, dare I say, about this Padres team anymore that haven't been said already. I do think that this Dodgers team is still one that, can compete. We know that the Dodgers can compete, but I can't lie to you, it felt like a little bit of deja vu. And I know that Jeff Snyder, for everybody who listened yesterday, went on a whole rant. I ran out of time, so frankly, I didn't retort too much. And I think that sometimes you could maybe argue, okay, it is baseball and it is random, and you don't want to kill people as much as you kill basketball and football players and whatnot. But no, that is what the Dodgers are known for. And I think it is absolutely patently absurd to pretend that the Dodgers are not just big-time chokers, and specifically more big-time chokers when you take into account that their fan base and their media acts like they run everything. They're like, it runs through us. And I'm like, yeah, well, a lot of people seem to run through you, don't they? So does it really run through you? It's like, no, it actually runs through the Astros. Oh, but they cheated in 2017. Based on you guys losing to the Nationals with Howie Kendrick, getting swept by the D-backs, losing to us, who you claim to be never think about, you sure that if the Astros weren't cheating, you still wouldn't have found a way to lose to them? So I think that that's insane. But for the most part, this is still a very good team. And you still have this thing with Shohei Ohtani and all that stuff. But all in all, how can you not love this Padres team, man? How can you not love it? This is amazing. We're still celebrating here on this podcast, but I want to take one last quick break before we get into the final segment of this show to talk to you about a longtime sponsor of the show that I adore, and that is the good folks over at Game Time. I love going to some live events, folks, no matter what kind. That's right, no matter what kind. This is not an ad just for baseball. This is not an ad just for sports. It is comedy. It is theater. It is concerts. It's whatever you kind of can think of. They've got some great sales for you, and Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Isn't that great? They've got super deals, seat views before you buy them, zone deals, flash deals. It's just deals galore. I mean, heck, their literal app is green. Green for money. Green for saving you money, I should say. You know what I mean? So go check out Game Time, guys. It's a fantastic app that I've used plenty of times myself. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and then use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today, because what time is it? It is game time. Go check it out. And just like that, everybody, we are back thriving and vibing here on the Locked On Padres podcast. As always, final segment of the pod. One thing I forgot to mention as well, just the cherry on top of this, that frankly, if you believe in like symbolism and all that stuff, and you believe in like, you know, kind of just these moments in sports where you're like, wow, that feels about right. It's a storybook sort of ending. I think it's really funny and potentially fortuitous, dare I say, that Shohei Ohtani was on deck for the Dodgers, and then they turned that triple play. So don't get me wrong, like there's a little bit of fortune there, but like, isn't there something like, again, maybe this is like the weird journalist in me that loves telling stories and, you know, loves crafting narratives and loves just talking about things and looking into the sentiments of stuff, but it doesn't it feel like would it, that is, if the Dodgers are going to lose, doesn't it feel like that's gonna happen, where like they choke like dogs like they usually do, and then the one guy who doesn't choke like a dog was like right on deck, you know what I mean? Or kind of like a Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert for my football fans out there, where it's like they are doing as much as they can, but the rest of the team lets them down and stuff like that. That's just another amazing fact about that, right? So again, I don't know what to say. Another thing, by the way, we were talking about the bullpen a lot in this episode. Zachary Shelton, he was asking a lot of questions over the weekend, said, why did they only have Estrada out there for one pitch in the sixth and not bring him back for the seventh? That's all he gets for the entire game. Also, why don't they use Hoeing more? Well, to answer the first part, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not really sure why. I didn't get that. Maybe they just thought that the matchups were better with your Tanner Scott, with your Jason Adam, and all those guys, which frankly, I'm not going to fault them, right? It's hard for me to fault this team on anything these days. Even when I think there's something wrong, I did get mad. The last time I've been annoyed with this team was the Logan Webb game. That was I think that was 2 weeks ago against the Giants, when the Padres jumped out on him really fast, and then the next four, I think it was the next 5 batters, all swung at the first pitch. And it just bothered me, where I was like, this is a guy who's literally known for wanting you to swing at his pitches to generate ground balls and stuff. And I understand they did at least score a run that inning, but I don't know. That was the last time I was annoyed with this team. So it's hard for me to fault them for any decisions at all whatsoever. I just trust them. I trust the vibes. I trust the nature of this team. And then the next thing is with Brian Hoeing. Well, you don't want to use every one of your relievers. That's really good, especially in this first game. Michael King only went 5 innings in this one, which is a little bit, which is fine, but a little bit less than maybe you would have wanted in this 3-game series in which you're trying to make a grab, trying to go for it, trying to get that postseason berth. And also trying to win the NL West. But still, I think that Hoeing will be available for the next game. And for the next game, it's going to be Dylan Cease versus Jack Flaherty, which will be very interesting. It's a pitcher that the Padres have not seen in quite some time. I don't remember if they saw him last year when he's with the Cardinals. But, nonetheless, we'll see how that all shakes up. That's going to be a very interesting matchup. Love that. Some other final points that I wanted to make is, first of all, I saw Manny was wearing green, or like neon green. I missed it. Apologies, guys. I missed it, but I don't exactly know what that was for. Right? I don't know. Was I missing something? Is there something that happened? I'm not trying to be insensitive. It was for something specific, but whatever. I just wondering out there. I think I already mentioned the Profar diving catch. Just Profar, the Dodgers, every team fan base, it's very weird. The ones that, like, it's very weird to hate Jurickson Profar, frankly. It's a little bit cringe, dare I say. I understand some of the teams, like the rival teams, or the teams that are like, it's like a sports hate, where you don't like really viciously hate him. You're just like, why does that guy keep killing us? The same way, say, Padres fans hate CJ Crone, right? Guys like that, Charlie Blackmon, where it's like, there's nothing wrong with them. It's just like, why do you hate us? You know what I mean? Why do you keep making these great moments for us? I recommend everyone go check out just all of these celebration videos. If you're just in need of some good vibes, some good energy, the celebration videos, there's one with AJ Preller, that was really, really great. You see Jackson Merrill and one of them just be like, yeah, man, double I'm a player. Like, I don't know if tomorrow's just going to be, or today, I should say, by the time everybody's watching this, is going to be like the ultimate hangover game where they won't show up and they lose like 8-0. Frankly, I wouldn't care even if they did. I mean, I would care a little bit because, again, still going for that NL West berth, but just absolutely nuts. It's just really fun. There's so many pictures of all of them smiling into the camera. The shirtless Tatis going nuts. Jurickson Profar being the first one to pop a bottle. Mike Schultz comments after the game. We haven't talked about this, but he talked about Peter Seidler. And again, I mentioned this earlier, but like if you're into like crafting narratives, I just mentioned about the Dodgers. If you're a fan of that stuff, like if there are reporters out there, they probably are like just, this is a great story, is that with the passing of Peter Seidler and all that he did for this team and clearly wanting to not just win, but build a different culture, build the fan fest where they used to be like nobody that went to that thing, because this is Padres we're talking about historically. And then all of a sudden it was like the talk of the town. They looked like the Miami Heat last year. Like that's what it felt like. It obviously didn't go well. And similar to that Miami Heat team, it did not go, for all my NBA heads out there, it did not go well that first year. Not 1, not 2, not 3. Did not go well for them that year. And the Padres didn't go well for them that year. But if you want to draw a little parallel there, I think we saw the Miami Heat ended up doing pretty well after that first season. But it's just so funny that, again, that's what adds even more magic to the season, is also the Padres lost their owner in Peter Seidler, and that was really sad. And what I think has always stuck out to me is just how much it seems to affect a lot of other people too. Mike Schilt getting maybe perhaps a little bit choked up in the post-game presser, like on the field at least, talking about Seidler, like, he'd be smiling right now and seeing all that stuff. Like, he clearly cared. AJ Preller, yeah, we make jokes and whatnot, but like, still, he's always come off as this guy. And this is also based on some, reports and stuff too. You read from The Athletic and the Tribune and all that stuff, that micromanaging and maybe not always the best people person, not in like a malicious way, but more like a, he's quiet type of way. And even when he was getting a little bit choked up talking about Peter Seidler, like that's clearly, there's been this vibe to them. They wear the patch and everything. And for them to be doing this, you just got to love these players for that, right? For on top of this loss of life, for you to be performing at this level, specifically when this is what they wanted, right? This isn't just some guy that passed that, let's be real, there's a lot of owner problems in baseball, right? I mean, just yesterday we saw that the Pittsburgh Pirates, a team that I think is hilarious that people act like they matter in any sort of way in terms of being better in the future, unless you cover them. Love you people that cover the Pirates. Shout out Ethan Smith of Locked On Pirates. We people are like, wow, they got Skeens and Jared Jones and Kibra. I'm like, guys, they don't spend any money. They don't care. Like, they're not going to win anything. And you just saw yesterday that they demoted Rowdy Tellez, who's, I got some beef with politically that we won't talk about in this episode. But Rowdy Tellez, they sent him down to the minors 4 games. 4 games specifically. I think it's no. Not, was it 4 games or 4 plate appearances? I forgot which one. Before he would have received a $200,000 bonus. And it's like, he also was an above average hitter. Like, he'd been doing well for them. It's not like that. So they purely and only did that because they wanted to cut on $200K. As opposed to this Padres team with AJ Preller and Peter Seidler, the Seidler family, when they took over, that haven't even gone to arbitration with any player. They might have gone to 1. Actually, I could be wrong about that. I think they went to arbitration with maybe 1 player. I think. I could be wrong about that. Feel free to leave comments if you have anything. But that's what... Isn't it amazing, the dichotomy between this culture and that? And the Pirates and the Brewers and the Rays, the Guardians, all these teams. That's why this means even more, right? Is that Seidler feels like he was this godfather, the podfather, dare I say, of this team, one of the architects, in terms of just funding it and making it become a thing. Right, especially for a city that, in San Diego, that lost the Chargers, right? That doesn't have, an NFL team anymore. That doesn't have an NBA team, right? You've got plenty of NBA teams around the area. Don't get me wrong, this could be far worse. Like, look at the poor A's fans out there. But still, for you to come in and do all that, it means a lot. And this season, again, I've said this like 400 times already on this podcast, but it has been magical. It's been just so beautiful to watch. I do believe, all my years watching sports, I've seen a lot of great teams, man. But it's not just about it being a great team. This is not the best team overall I've ever seen. I watched the Golden State Warriors win 73 games. They broke a record. I watched the Miami Heat that I talked about before. I watched the, I was alive for it. I didn't really watch the 2001 Mariners, the greatest, regular season team in history. I've seen the NFL with the Patrick Mahomes and the Brady back-to-backs and all this stuff, but this is the most amazing team I've watched, not just because I cover them, not just because I'm a Padres fan, but because of all the storylines, because of all the good vibes, because you consider all those teams I just mentioned before, it's not like they weren't known for something, right? The Yankees, all these sort of teams, they've at least had a little bit stronger of a history. The Padres basically were a little bit like a blank page, where it's like, yeah, we know Tony Gwynn, Trevor Hoffman, Ken Caminiti, even Steve Finley, like they've had some good times. Goose Gossage, those crazy uniforms, the Let's Go Padres song, that really beautiful picture of the guys sitting on a truck as the stadium is out there in the distance. If you're a Padres fan and you're on Twitter a lot, you know what I'm talking about. But there's something about Seidler, the breakout performances, the comeback wins, the litany of just moments. Guys, Dylan Cease threw a no-hitter not too long ago, and I swear we almost have forgotten about that. You know what I mean? Yu Darvish going through his personal stuff, coming back and performing at a grand level, and all of the team huddling around him. Jackson Merrill's Rookie of the Year campaign. Jurickson Profar going from the worst qualified player in baseball last year to one of the best batters in Major League Baseball. And then ending the game against your rival and clinching a playoff berth on a triple play. You can't make this up. You can't. It's storybook. It is one of the finest tales you'll read. So that's why I think it is the most beautiful team that I have personally ever watched in my life across any sport, right? Maybe there's one I'm forgetting, but I really do believe that. I really do believe that, because I think that even if you're not a Padres fan, objectively, some of the things I just mentioned and some of the things I didn't even mention, it's unbelievable stuff. It really is. It really is. It absolutely is. But folks, that is about it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Follow myself at Javier, the best handle in the game, at JAVIIPENO. Send me all of your questions and comments. I'll be scrolling through them tomorrow as we recap tomorrow's game, today's game, whichever one. You get my point. Going to be recapping that. I will, though, answer some of your questions as well if I see anything that is worthy. And of course, we'll see if they clinch that NL West. Go check out Just Baseball. Go check out Baseball versus the World. And until next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. All right, for our faithful homies, take care.